Welcome back to Automate Live. My name is Brian Heater. I am the managing editor of A3, and it is my honor to be here with award winner Stu Shepherd of Shepherd Solutions, of FANUC, Universal Robotics, KUKA. Who am I forgetting? It's been
Goodle.
Yeah,
and a couple of startups.
And a couple of startups. Yeah, I mean, we were talking before, and you've been pretty much all the big players, it seems.
Quite a few of them. Yeah, I've had a great run of opportunities and leadership, and I even started out as a customer. So I started out at the very beginning of this whole thing as an end user of robots, which got me in robots in the first place. But yes, I followed suppliers and had fantastic opportunities, and it's been interesting to see the different approaches that each manufacturer uses to hit the marketplace, and I've learned a lot from that. But also, I think we've also helped a lot by helping those companies grow.
Yeah, it strikes me because I've been in journalism for 20 years, and the world of tech journalism, it's a fairly small place. People, maybe doesn't look like it from the outside, but it sounds like your world is like that too. So it kind of keeps you on your best behavior.
Yes, it does. Well, the joke is that you don't ever leave a company or leave the industry. You just get recycled into different roles. And it's really a case here. It's a very relationship-oriented industry as a whole. It's a smaller industry than most people think. So you can only have one reputation. It better be a good one. So you have to be very cautious about how you conduct yourself to make sure you can be trustworthy. Trust is hard to earn but easy to lose. So I've always maintained, keep trying to do the right thing for right people, and good things will happen. But yeah, it's a very, very small industry. We all know each other. And even as competitors, we may fight during the day, but we'll be out at the happy hours afterwards, having a beer.
You were saying earlier, and we don't need to mention names, but you were discussing two of the large companies and the fact that one side of the business, they're competitors, and the other side, they're actually working in tandem.
Well, friendships transcend competition. So you can have friendly competition, and as long as everybody's playing above board and doing it honestly, it's great. And frankly, competition makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And it's really been a great run. And, if you're truly a good friend, you're going to be friends for life, regardless of who you're working for, because friendships and companies are two different things sometimes. And it doesn't mean you don't sometimes even cooperate. There's been times when one company will actually purchase the equipment from another company and combine them on site. And some of these opportunities we work on are so big that no one company can provide everything. So there's places where you actually wind up working together on control systems and other things because we're all connected at some way or another. So that makes it interesting and fun as well.
Yeah, it sounds like throughout your career you've had a bit of serendipity as well as a lot of you go into what may seem like a casual conversation, and you come out the other side, the CEO of the company.
Yeah, it's happened twice. So, but part of that's keeping your eyes and ears open. And if you're always providing value and you're looking forward and not just paying attention to what's in the rearview mirror, then you see opportunities.
Yeah.
And if people recognize that you're open to ideas, and they'll share ideas, and you collaborate until you find a win-win solution that suits everybody's needs. And I will admit there's times I've been opportunistic. I mean, you have to be alive in this marketplace. But I've tried to make choices that had long-term sustainability, because once you commit that you're going to do something for a company, it's not a short-term commitment. You're not in there for 90 days or 3 years to flip the company. You're in there to create a perpetual enterprise that you want to continue to grow over time. So your approach is different when you're playing the long ball versus playing just short hits.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. You alluded to this a little bit, but some of the differences between competitors that are essentially doing the same thing. And I assume, especially in a case if it's not a U.S. company, if it's initially a Chinese company, you come in, you have to learn the culture and then figure out what it is that makes that company tick.
Right. And sometimes the companies would arguably look the same, but you have to focus on what is it that the customer really needs and why are they doing automation in the first place.
And what's special about
and what's
this
your
company?
Secret sauce that helps you address that. And every company has a specialty. Every company has something that makes them unique. If they recognize that, that's great. Sometimes they don't recognize that, or sometimes the customer doesn't recognize what that is. So in some cases, and I'll use KUKA as the example, we weren't always competing against robot companies. We were competing against other kinds of automation. Like in the entertainment business, we were competing against roller coasters. Well, we did a robo coaster, a very different technology. But we were able to provide value that the other guys couldn't, and then we won the business. And likewise in aerospace, when we first started doing carbon fiber, using KUKA robots for laying carbon fiber, we had discovered that our robots were more accurate, more precise than the other robots in the marketplace. And we were open to making changes in the controls that were necessary to implement the systems that were being asked for by the Boeings, the Lockheed Martins, and the others that were out there. So it was truly a collaboration with the customer, and together we discovered what made one company unique over another, and then everybody leveraged that to make it work.
Something that's really sunk in since I started going to this show, one, obviously because it's automation, but two, when it's in Detroit in particular, is just how far ahead the automotive industry is when it comes to adopting automation. I mean, we're talking like 60s for some of these early robots. Yeah.
Well, and in the early days, it was only automotive that were doing robots. Now you can see every niche in the world that's using robots. And I was having this conversation with the cab driver on the way down here this morning. A lot of people don't realize when they're actually involved with robots that they're actually taking advantage of the benefits of robots because they don't recognize what robots necessarily look like. Many people think that they're like Star Wars, R2-D2 and CP3O and all the other ones that we've seen in the movies, but they're really not, and sometimes it's very subtle. So at rock concerts, there'll be robots handling vision systems and lighting and screens and all kinds of things, and people don't realize those are robots. Entertainment ride systems, they don't realize they're actually riding on a robot. The CyberKnife surgical robot is, yes, a robot, but it's doing gamma radiation. Patients don't even know it because they're sedated. So there's a lot of different places where they don't realize that they've been enhanced by robot technology. And even the warehouse operations, the Amazons and the Walmarts and all that, most people have no idea how many robots are actually inside those warehouses now. So it's reached out to many more markets. What's exciting about this show is you can see how many more markets are starting to recognize the value of not just robots, but the other associated automation that it takes to solve problems.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I wonder if the perception will change or evolve, depending on the success of like humanoid robots, for example, because those look like the movie robots.
Yeah, they do. And there's a lot of hype around humanoid robots, but a humanoid robot has a form factor that may not necessarily be economical. It may not work for a particular case, but the idea is okay. So how do you take the learnings from that to apply to something that does, in fact, work and solve a problem? And the challenge with humanoids today is that a lot of the technology, a lot of the work that it takes just to make the humanoid move consumes a lot of power that takes away from what it can do for people. So Joe Engelberger, who received the award from under his name last night, he devoted the latter part of his life to the service robot industry and the idea of how can we help with elder care and places where robots can be useful to extend the quality of life for older people. Because as you get old and less mobile and need more help, it's very difficult, not only on the patient, on the person,
but also more people are choosing to live at home.
Exactly.
And so the population is just getting older decade by decade.
So the savings of being at home is significant, but likewise, the healthcare buildings, the facilities are not designed for automation. So at this point, we have to introduce automation to construction and architecture type people to help them understand what can be done, because the analog to the home care and healthcare industry is that in the early days of the robotics industry for automotive, we couldn't just retrofit the plants the way they were. We had to make substantial changes. Today's automotive plants look dramatically different than what they did back in the 60s and 70s when robots were first introduced. We have to have that same kind of a design for use approach in the healthcare industry as well to be able to implement automation in a useful way without wasting a ton of money.
So would you say that age tech is one of your major passions right now?
So it's growing and it's evolving. So we've already seen the huge penetration regarding like endosurgery and even development of drugs and these types of things. There's a lot of robotic automation and drug discovery and drug testing and other things. So we're seeing it happen at the equipment level. But I believe that the launch point for healthcare in general is a combined effort between the use case of what do you want to try to accomplish, but designing facilities and automation to come together in that particular environment. And yes, that's a massive opportunity. Just the savings of keeping people at home longer is great, but also people are living significantly longer. So the need for healthcare is now extended longer and more difficult in that last few years of life. So how can we address that? Because it's also very hard to be a healthcare giver at that age, because the patient's needs are so extreme compared to a healthy younger person.
Yeah, one of the things I appreciate about a show like this is there's a lot of conversations around safety, which obviously it's always been a big part of what you do. But most, if not all, of these big industrial arms are caged in cells. We're talking about humanoids and AMRs interacting with people. But even beyond that, if we're talking about robots in the home, the two groups of people always point to are older people and children. So safety really needs to be a focus moving forward.
And we actually hold robots to a higher degree of standard from safety than we hold human beings to.
Yeah.
If a robot steps on a child's foot, it's a catastrophe.
That's kind of what's keeping self-driving cars back.
So, the risk of litigation is one of the biggest risks on the robot industry. You could lose your whole company because of an accident.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, frankly. But there's actions you can do. There's risk assessments and other things that we've developed in the A3 that are starting to be applied outside the industrial environment. So with the right assessments, the right tools, and the right technology that's available here at the show, you can, in fact, make robots safe to be around people. But the industry has to evolve. There has to be standards for a home, for being able to put robots in a home, just like there's standards for buildings for factory automation. There has to be for the home. There has to be standards adjusted for the non-industrial environment and the disruptions that occur. Because you also have to worry not only about the person, but pets that show up and jump and everything. My grand dogs, as I call them, will jump on me instantly. What happens when a robot is jumped on by a dog? What happens?
Yeah.
So all of these things have to be worked on, and it has to be part of that risk assessment of how do you manage that space.
So one thing I really wanted to talk about before we're out of time is the 1980s. Automotive manufacturing in the 1980s.
Yeah.
I mean, you were there. Obviously, a lot of these conversations that we're still having about offshoring were happening back then, and at the time, the impression that I get at the time is really a race with like Japan. What was it like working in that environment? I mean, it must have been intense.
It was great. I had some fantastic mentors. I happened to be a co-op student at General Motors and was assigned into an automation group very early in the game. And the difference between then and now, the biggest thing is we designed everything from scratch. I mean, everything when it first started was actually still on a drafting board. CAD systems were just starting to come out, and CAD certainly made it much easier. But today, a lot of things we designed from scratch are available off the shelf. You can buy them today. Yeah. You can buy complete systems today. There weren't as many systems integrators then as there were now. So one of the reasons it was only automotives that did this is they had the highest use case and the greatest degree of standardization and the biggest volume. What's different about today is to be able to automate a company, you have to be able to deal extremely low volume and very, very high mix of product. It's not like you're only building a Cadillac, you're building all kinds of different things. So the challenge gets to be is the flexibility requirements and software requirements are significantly higher. And those didn't exist in the 80s. So we had to keep it simple. And I look at it very much to like building cars. There was a point in time to build a car, you bought a chassis, you bought an engine, and you maybe assembled it yourself. Henry Ford, with the introduction of the Model T, started doing assemblies and selling them, and it's evolved from there.
PCs were very similar as well.
PCs were the same way. You used to buy bits and pieces and put them together. Then Dell, put together packages. And now you can buy PCs like off your laptop or off your cell phone and deliver it in a couple of days. So the path for automation in general is going very much like those, but the difference is it's going much faster. The rate of change of automation coming in the marketplace is 10 to 20 times faster than what we've seen in the past. So I'm super excited about what's coming because you can almost feel it. You can taste it. The challenge I see is there's a lot of automation that's available today that's useful today that people aren't using, and I'm still trying to understand why. And so there's two different challenges. One is how do we get people to make better utilization of what's here today, and then how fast can we get to what's next? And both those will be challenges forever.
Yeah, the pandemic was undoubtedly an accelerant for the robotics industry, certainly for like fulfillment. It was in warehouses. And I've been discussing the past 6 months with a lot of people, and avoiding certain words. But I'm curious, and we've only got about a minute left, but I'm curious, what the next 5 years look like. That obviously people have been talking about reshoring for a long time.
Right.
They really did during the pandemic, and for other reasons, they're talking about it now.
Yeah. So the challenge with reshoring in general is there's some jobs, frankly, you don't want to reshore. The other thing is it takes a long time to do it. So a political situation that only lasts for a couple of years is much different than building a plant. And even the most modern plants like Tesla, 5 years, to build that. And there was a lot of planning that took before all that got going.
Yeah, and NUMMI was actually there already. So
right, exactly. We retrofit an existing plant. So the challenge is how do we get things going today? Because there's things you should do today that has nothing to do with tariffs. Just go and get it done. Stop worrying about it. But going forward on the other things that are going on out there, I see a convergence of technologies coming together to make it easy. And the key is keep challenging, keep asking the questions. And don't say, why can't we do this? Is how can we do this? And flip the mindset to a solutions orientation instead of, I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, Sue, unfortunately, we're just about out of time right now, but congratulations.
Thank you.
I could tell that you really felt that award, that was a very emotional moment for you. And it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brian. Thanks very much. Great to see you.